All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about incorporating with your state and registering as a charity with your state. So you may have to go back and forth between this video and the next video because your state may require you to have an EIN from the IRS before you register as a charity with your state. And we'll show you how to get that. It's quick and easy in the next video. So today we're going to talk about incorporating with your state, which is setting up your nonprofit as its own entity. And then separately, we're also going to show you how to register as a charity with your state using Colorado as an example. I'm Mark Lyda from Lyda Law Firm. Let's get started. All right, so we start by looking up the Colorado Secretary of State. I always mention to people, make sure you're going to an actual government website with a URL that ends in .us or .gov, something like that, because there are a lot of third-party companies out there, whether you're trying to incorporate or get an EIN that make you think they are the government, but they're not. So you go to the Colorado Secretary of State's website first. So first we are incorporating, not registering as a charity. So you start out just like you would if you were starting a small business, by going to the businesses section here for the Colorado Secretary of State. And then under search and file, we want to file a business document, create a new record. In other words, a new company or a new nonprofit. And under LLCs, corporations, and trade names, we're going to go with nonprofit corporation. Obviously. Here you put in the name of your nonprofit. You can include Inc. or something like that at the end of your name, but you are not required to, at least in Colorado, as far as Colorado is concerned. Let's call ours Kids Inc. Oh, name is not available. Kids with a Z. There we go. Kids with a Z Inc. And then again, it's just filling out a form. If you've seen our other videos, a lot of this stuff can be fairly self-explanatory. The registered agent is the person who is given the lawsuit papers if you are sued. So every company, every nonprofit needs a registered agent, and that's just the person that the process server will come find if you are sued. Hopefully you never have to use it. And you update that information annually. So you say who is starting the nonprofit as well as who the registered agent is, and now who is the person who is actually filling out this form. In my case, I'm just putting myself for all three. You may want to also attach your articles of incorporation and bylaws as along with this filing if you want them to be public, but you are not required to do so. And you'll be able to answer the question of whether the nonprofit corporation has voting members from you will have already considered that as part of your process of making your articles of incorporation and bylaws. Voting members are most likely to be in a type of nonprofit where it's like a trade group or a trade association, banding together and you have members who vote. But a typical charity might be less likely to have voting members, so I'm going to put no. And then the last thing you have to do is what happens to the nonprofit's money if it dissolves? This is also in something that should be in your articles of incorporation as some of the IRS required language, which I spoke on in the articles of incorporation video earlier. So you can find from the Secretary of State's website the language for doing that. You can find the suggested language to use right on the IRS website itself. So I found this language at irs.gov/charities, nonprofits /suggested language for corporations and associations. There's a hyphen between each word there. irs.gov/charities, nonprofits /suggested language for corporations and associations. And I'm just going to use their language verbatim here for the distribution of assets. So upon dissolution of the corporation, the assets shall be distributed for one or more exempt purposes within the meaning of the IRS code. So it's fairly open-ended how you'll use it. What you're saying here is if your nonprofit dissolves, you will use the money in a way that is legal, essentially. But this is the language that the IRS suggests you use. You can then choose to have a delayed effective date if you would like, or you can have it effective right now. In Colorado, you can sign up for email notifications if you would like, because you'll have a reminder each year to update your information, make sure your address is correct and your registered agent is correct and all of that stuff. And like I said, you've said who the registered agent is, you've said who is actually incorporating this, and now you're saying who's actually filing the form. So this isn't necessarily the person who's in charge, it's just the person who is clicking submit right now. Now the Secretary of State will tell you you're not done yet because you need to review your filing. Okay, is everything correct here? All right. And then, of course, you have to pay. So I'm clicking on pay now, and the charge is $50. And then you simply just go on and pay with your credit or debit card, which I won't do because I don't actually want to incorporate Kids Inc. right now. But that's the end of it, and then you'll be incorporated. All right, so that's how you incorporate with your state. Your nonprofit corporation now exists within your state. You may, at this point, have to go get your EIN from the IRS, which is, like I said, quick and easy, and we'll explain how to do it in the next video. But another thing that you're likely to have to do is to have to register as a charity with your state. Like everything else in these videos, anything state-specific could vary from state to state, but we'll show you how to register as a charity in your state using Colorado just as an example. All right, so we're back on the Colorado Secretary of State homepage, and we scroll down, and instead of clicking on businesses, trademarks, and trade names, we click on charities and fundraisers. On the charities and fundraisers page, we are not a consumer or paid solicitor. We are a charity, so we scroll down to that section. If you don't already have an account, you'll need to create one. And in Colorado, in order to do that, you'll need an EIN from the IRS. So if you're in Colorado, go check out our next video on how to get that EIN and come back to learn how to register your charity. So click on e-file or instructions for the registration. The instructions are very step-by-step, and they're a great reference guide to just kind of keep up on your computer as you do it. So you've already created your account. So when you click on register, it will take you to what's called your dashboard. And then you can just click on register under your organization. You see, when I created the account, I typed in my EIN. This is just kind of a placeholder EIN. And we click on the hyperlink there for register. And as with your incorporation with the Secretary of State, there is a fee for it, and you can pay that online using a debit or credit card. And by the way, that's another reason you might want your EIN before doing this, because banks will require you to have an EIN to open a separate account for your nonprofit. So this gives a little overview of the process of the steps. We're doing a registration statement, which is basically just a kind of a declaration that you are operating as a charity and taking contributions, charitable contributions for your organization as well. As you know, my charity here is called Kids with a Z, Inc. And it is a nonprofit. So we're not going to click the box, yes, for public benefit or benefit corporation. This is a nonprofit corporation. So that is a no. Type in your address, etc. Just like any other form. You only have to enter your mailing address if it's different, enter your phone number and your email. Fax and a URL are not required. Okay, so on this next page, you have to describe your organization's exempt purpose in a clear and concise manner, state the number of clients served, publications issued, etc. If that applies to you, discuss achievements that are not measurable. So some of this will come from the language that you've come up with in your narrative already, and perhaps from your articles of incorporation as well. I also will direct you back to that IRS website that gives you suggested language. So that's irs.gov/charities nonprofits/suggested language for corporations and associations. I am going to take some of the language there and copy and paste it in at the end of this statement. So said corporation is organized exclusively for charitable, etc. purposes. I'm going to just put that in at the end of whatever I type in here. So I'm going to say Kids Inc., maybe helps youth get to school safely by providing them with portable jetpacks that also function as book bags. So that's our charitable purpose. Our number of youth served is we serve over 10,000 youth in the Denver metro area. And then at the end, I will put in, copy and paste that language. Said corporation is organized exclusively for charitable purposes, etc. You can see I already have the EIN in here. And then it asks if you've applied for or been granted IRS tax exempt status. So we're going to say no right now because we haven't done our 1023 form because that's a later video. So we're going to say no for now on that. And then you can select categories that apply to your exempt purpose. So for me, maybe public society benefit and youth development. I'll select both of those. So contributions to the organization are not yet tax deductible. We'll say no for now and go back and change it once we have the tax deductible determination from the IRS. And if you are doing your filing yourself, you do not have to fill out the portion about outside service provider handling your filings for you. Any other names under which you solicit contributions? If not, you can move on. And then you fill out the information for your board of directors. Now, this is something that you want to consider and have considered already. You will want to also include this information with your IRS 1023 application. So we do suggest that you have all of this, and you can just select no right now, but I suggest that you have all of this ready, particularly the information for the president or the chair of your board, so that you can enter in that information right there. And then you have to say who has custody of your financial records. Again, this is just that, if the state ever wants to examine anything, they need to know where they can go. So now we have to add the names of our directors, executive personnel, etc. So to do that, you click add. You can't just click next. You click add and you put in the information. So say this is for I'm naming myself executive director and save. I'm naming Darren from our firm chair of the board of directors. Now you review your work to make sure everything's accurate. It gives you a link to bring up the form here. See, very official looking, and this is what will be actually submitted to the state. Click back to go back, next to go forward. Now, financial summary. So you may be thinking, well, we're a new organization. We don't have any finances yet. What are we going to put here? What the Secretary of State says in the instructions is that you fill out estimates, and you can't fill out all zeros. Those will be rejected. Your registration will be rejected as incomplete if you fill out all zeros, unless you contact the Secretary of State's office to tell them that you'll be doing that. Otherwise, what you need to do is estimate what your finances will be. So we'll say that our fiscal year is just a regular calendar year and the ending month is December. Is the organization incorporated? Yes. Date, would be today's date. State incorporated is Colorado in this case. Your reporting year is the year of the first month of your fiscal year. So I've chosen just a calendar year for our fiscal year here. So I'm saying for 2020 as an example, because that's when I'm filming the video. And then we estimate our finances for the year. We click the box up here to identify that these are just estimates. These are predictions for what we want. I think we're going to get $10,000 for our jetpacks from private contributors who care about those issues, and maybe $5,000 in government grants. I think our expenses, jet PACs are expensive, so we're going to say that it's $9,000 for program services. Maybe we'll spend $5,000 on fundraising and $1,000 on administrative costs. That will put, I don't know, I'm going to say our estimates are that we're perfectly balanced with $15,000 in assets and $15,000 in liabilities. And you don't have to do a further breakdown than that if you don't want to. Next, we add any professional fundraisers that we might be using to help us get that money together. But I'm going to say that we're going to do the fundraising ourselves, or I'll just assume for purposes of this. Although make sure that actually, if you've put in that you're doing fundraising expenses in the last one, you might want to make sure that that matches up with any paid solicitors you're identifying here. But assuming that you don't have that lined up yet, or you're just going to kind of bootstrap it and try to raise the money yourself, we can click next. And then it just asks some kind of miscellaneous information at the end. Fundraising professional fees. Are we associated with a national organization, like, we're the Colorado chapter of Kids Inc. nationwide or something like that? I'm saying no for all of these. Did we solicit gifts in the past that were not tax deductible? I'm saying no. And then the states in which we're registered to solicit contributions. So if you are trying to hold fundraisers for your nonprofit in a different state, you'll need to register in that state as well. So I'm registering in Colorado on the assumption that this charity is taking place in Colorado and we're asking for contributions in Colorado. If you're going out there and trying to host, a fundraiser in California as well, go ahead and go through this process for California as well. Oh, and I said in my estimates, just for showing how it's done, that we're doing $1,000 in outside fundraiser fees. So it's making sure that my answers are consistent. I'm going to say yes for us soliciting contributions that were not tax deductible, since we're not tax deductible yet, but we can go back and change that. If you do solicit contributions that are not tax deductible, you need to include a statement in your solicitation saying that they're not tax deductible. However, I also want you to know that once you get that IRS approval for your contributions to be tax deductible, that approval goes all the way back to your founding as a nonprofit, as long as you do it in a fairly timely manner. So while you're waiting for the IRS to approve your application, contributions that you receive during that time will become tax deductible if the IRS approves your application. Again, you can click on the hyperlink to review your very official looking work here. Make sure all the numbers look right. And this is when you go on and sign. This is under penalty of perjury. You want to make sure that everything is very true before you click the box to sign it. I obviously am not going to do that in this video because I am not really starting this charity. This is just for educational purposes, but this is where you would go on and sign and pay your filing fees as well. Okay, so that's how you incorporate with your state and how you register as a charity with your state. Next up, we'll talk about how to obtain your employer identification number from the IRS. Thanks for watching. Please remember to click like and subscribe to help keep legal education free and accessible for small businesses and nonprofits. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below or reach out to us directly.